welcome back, folks. I'm so excited to see you again. We're back live in San Diego, California, run it by my lawyer. Today is going to be kind of a tough episode. I'm going to go over police shootings and issues such as like when a police officer can be liable for killing somebody and when they're not liable, criminal charges against police officers, and how the judicial system kind of deals with those things. And we're going to show footage of some police shootings, and it's going to be disturbing. So just giving you a heads up. And my goal for today is that you watch this and then you kind of learn, oh, this is kind of what the prosecutors have to keep in mind or what they have to prove if they want to charge police officers. This is, what the police officers' defenses are and if they'll prevail or how they'll prevail, things like that. All right, so it's going to be a great episode. You're going to learn a lot. And I'm excited to have you here. And as always, I love the comments and I love when people run it by my lawyer, right? Some of the comments from the last few days in regard to the podcast episode about abortion, we have Stephanie saying, I'm going to sue the Supreme Court for intentional infliction of emotional distress. As funny as that sounds, people have tried that and it's a no-no. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere. You're suing the court in the court, so it's not going to go anywhere. Stephanie also said, it's effed up. Who the hell are they to do that? I have zero respect for them. You cannot bring church into politics. I understand that is frustrating. Of course, the Supreme Court justices, their reasoning never said for our religious beliefs, but a lot of people clearly think that was their motivations. And then my friend Jane, all right, you know who you are, Jane in Michigan, from Detroit, saying freaking lawyers. And I'm the first one to agree with her. Freaking lawyers. We always make things complicated. Speaking of, so my friend Jane is from Detroit, and I always make fun of Detroit, and sometimes I air my jokes about Detroit here, and some people give me grief. Paula, you know who you are. You just gave me grief. I mean, look, you can't blame me for making fun of Detroit, okay? I mean, scary things have come out of Detroit. For example, my mother-in-law moved out here from Detroit. Okay? Enough said, right? So the first case, okay, we're going to go over three various cases of this police arrests and whatnot. One of them will be this Jayland Walker, who was shot about 90 times in his arrest, and he was unarmed. And in Grand Rapids, Michigan, it's hard to pronounce. This gentleman from the Congo in Africa, his name is Patrick Lyoya, I'm going to say. I'm hoping I get his name right. It's Lola is how it's kind of spelled. So I'll say it as Lola, and hopefully that's correct. He was shot one time in the back of the head and died from the police shot. So we'll talk about his case. And then a lot of interest has come up with the arrest of this Chicago shooting suspect, right? And when he was arrested, it was without incident, right? So a lot of people are like, oh man, every time there's a white shooter, they're always arrested without incident. And, while these black, traffic stops end up in murders. Okay. So I'll address that and kind of how, the legal system looks at this and the facts that they take into account, and how prosecutors have to treat these things. All right. So we'll start with the Jayland Walker. So this guy is driving in Akron, Ohio. And then there was some sort of traffic violation that the police officer initially noticed. All right. And then, turns on the sirens going after him. And then the guy kind of speeds up. And then the police officer notices or perceives that there's a gunshot that comes out of the car. Okay. And later, there was some footage from like a traffic signal. And I'll show it right now. All right. As you can see in this picture right here, it showed later that potentially like around the same time that the police officer said he heard a gunshot coming out of the car of Jayland Walker, what appears to potentially be a muzzle flash. Sometimes when when a firearm is discharged, there'll be like a little flash at the end of it, kind of from the gunpowder, and some other things that sometimes cause the muzzle flash. So that could potentially corroborate that police officer's rendition of the facts that was happening. So then he calls in, shots fired to the rest of the Akron Police Department, through dispatch. And of course, they dispatch then calls a lot of other police officers, right? And then we get this police chase, all right? Ultimately, so Mr. Walker's driving off, and then ultimately he stops, okay? And now what we're gonna see is the body cam image of how he's stopping, okay? We could roll it right now.
You fucking move! Hey, don't fucking move! Don't fucking move! Don't fucking move! Show me your hands! Show me your fucking hands!
All right, so as you can see here, the car stops, but what does this guy do? He runs out of it. And there's, it's swarmed with police officers, over a dozen police officers are there, and the guy makes a run for it. Okay. Now, fudge, there's a lot of, debate here from the police scholars, in terms of like, let's try to de-escalate. Maybe when someone runs away, you just let them run, because you have his car. He's not going to go far, and usually, cooler heads prevail, so to speak. But anyway, so he runs away and they chase him. And he put on a mask, some sort of ski mask. Okay. Which apparently not the right thing to do. Okay. COVID or not, you definitely don't want to do that when you're around a bunch of police officers, right? So he runs off. Then they chase him. So what we're gonna see is the footage of after as they're chasing him, he ends up stopping. And when he turns around, the police start engaging in a lot of shots. In fact, in the next 8 seconds, they shoot something like, 70, 80, or 90 rounds. Like there is not an official number yet out. They shot the freaking F out of this guy. And even when he was on the ground, they just kept shooting. So what you're about to see is just kind of from two different police cam, and then they kind of wear these cameras right here. And the city of Akron enacted a law last year that said anytime a police officer is involved in a deadly shooting, the body cam must be released within 7 days. I think that's a pretty good law. I'm an advocate for transparency, because I always say as a lawyer, if it's not transparent, they're hiding something, So it's pretty good that the police officers release this. All right, so what you're gonna see, and it's very disturbing. So if you want to fast forward it, obviously you're welcome to.
Show me your hands! Show me your fucking hands!
All right, so not the best footage, okay, to watch. Okay, so now comes the legal aftermath. Okay, the police chief in Akron, Ohio, said that okay, I'll paraphrase here. That's a lot of flipping shots, okay? 90 rounds, or whatever. I'm going to say 90 rounds, but it could have been 70, could have been 80, whatever, okay? So roughly 90 rounds of shots. That's a lot of shots. And so the police chief said that every single one of those shots has to be accounted for. And every single shot, the police officer has to explain why he or she felt they were in danger to justify that particular shot. So it's not going to be easy to do, I think. I think there's 8 police officers that shot and 5 officers there that did not shoot. Okay, So now let's start with the kind of, if I was the prosecutor, so to speak, all right? The law with police officer shootings goes like this. They are allowed to use deadly force if they have a reasonable fear that there is deadly force used against them, or another person. All right. So so that's why the police officers that were not in harm's way, if they shot, they have the defense that, well, I thought he was dangerous to other police officers. Okay. Now, as you could see in the footage, it's not, the guy is freaking running away. So in the police officer's defense, that nobody shot while he was running away. Also in the police officer's defense, and it's not, in the video it was hard to see, but one of them tried to use a taser, but it didn't work. The guy was too far away. So the fact that the police officers did not shoot while the guy was running, that is a big piece of evidence for the prosecutor, meaning that it's almost I don't want to say a slam dunk case, but anytime there's shots that are, hit the person in the back or the back of the head, that one, it's hard for the police officer then to say, I was in fear of my life, because the guy, he shoots somebody in the back, right? So here, they did not do that. They did not shoot him while he was running. And the video is very clear. He stops running, and then they start shooting. Okay. So here I think it's going to be a tough case for the prosecutor because the guy is running away from the police officer. Then he stops. They had reported on the radio that they heard a gunshot from the car, so that it's reasonable that maybe he has a gun with him as he's running. And then the fact that he stops, and then the fact that his hands were not, above his head when he stopped, that's another one. If there's somebody shot and while their hands are in the air, that is good evidence for the prosecutor, because it's hard to justify a police officer being fearful of his life when the guy, his hands are in the air, right? So, and that's where all those memes come in, like, don't shoot, my hands are in the air type of thing. So this individual, Mr. Walker, did not have his hands in the air. All right. So that's going to be another tough one for the prosecutor, the lawyers for the family, and one of my pet peeves about my fellow lawyers is when they make a speech to the public, they leave out so many facts that it's just a pet peeve of mine, right? It's just like, I go both ways in the sense that I don't like when the prosecutor leaves out facts when he or she makes a public statement, and I don't like when the lawyer for the family leaves out facts. Like the lawyer for the family was, oh, look at this guy, nice pictures of the guy and what a great kid he was, this and that, right? Like he never said, like, if I was the lawyer for the family, I would say something like, look, it shouldn't be a death penalty to drive away from the police, and it shouldn't be the death penalty to run away from the police either, and it shouldn't be a death penalty to stop, right? That's what I would say, because that's what happened. So I would have said that, and instead he just said, he was a great kid. He tries to make him out like a perfect kid, but right. Anyway, that's one of my pet peeves. So the family is questioning then, why the heck? Why did they just keep shooting? And then why did they keep shooting when the guy was on the ground? All right. That one, I don't know how the police are going to get around that. Okay. Because when they shoot somebody and he falls down, they probably should stop, right? It's going to be hard for them to say, well, I was scared that I shot him and everyone else shot him and he fell to the ground. And I was scared that even from the ground, he was going to keep shooting back. It's like those movies, you see a movie and some guy gets killed and then like everyone thinks he's dead and all of a sudden, he wakes up and starts shooting. Okay. That's not going to happen in real life. Right. So that one is going to be tough for the police to defend against. All right. It's like if it was like 5 shots or 10 shots, like that would be a lot, but that would probably be justifiable. 20 shots, 30 shots. 90, 90 shots by 8 different police officers. Like that one, I think is going to be tough. All right. Now, keep in mind, there's one thing that I think the police officers will not be in any sort of criminal trouble in this case. And there's this big one that a lot of people don't think about, and it happens all the time. To convict somebody of murder or manslaughter, you got to prove that somebody killed somebody, right? And this is I don't know how to say this without coming across as the biggest jerk in the world, okay? So I'm just going to say it, and I hope you don't think I'm a jerk. 8 people shot him 90 times, right? So the prosecutor can't charge any of them for murder because it's going to be impossible to prove who the heck killed this guy, right? Because 8 people shot him. Okay, like how is he gonna prove which bullet killed him? It's impossible, you know. And so that one's always a tough one. Okay, you can't do it. It's gonna be so difficult, and there's no sort of like felony murder rule. It's like, okay, well, they're all committing a felony, and there's somebody that died for some crazy reason. That doesn't really work when they charge police officers. Because it's not like the police officers are allowed to have the guns, and you know, it's not the same. Like when I say felony murder rule, it's like if 2 people, like let's say, rob a bank, and they're both committing this felony of robbing the bank, and then like on their way out, you know, let's say the security guard shoots, or there's like a crossfire and somebody dies. Even the bank robber that didn't kill the person, he could still be busted for the felony murder rule because there was a death in the commission of a felony, right? That doesn't apply to the police officer's actions. The prosecutor, to get a police officer for murder or manslaughter, has to prove which bullet killed him. And that is impossible in this case. So I don't believe in this case, if I was the prosecutor, I would charge anybody for murder, any of the police officers, just for that reason. Okay. Now, like I said, I sound like a jerk. By the way, there's a very amazing documentary. It's called 137 Shots, and it's about the story of this Cleveland couple in 2012. They were chased by something like 60 police cars, and then finally, when they were caught, everyone just started shooting in the car. All these police officers, and they charged one of them with murder. One of the police officers, he shot like 40 times. And even when they were dead, he kind of got up in the car and just kept shooting at them. It's a good documentary. And even that police officer was not found guilty. Again, it's hard to ding the whole thing on him because we don't know, it's going to be impossible to prove to the jury who killed them, or in this case with Mr. Walker, it's going to be impossible to prove to the jury which police officer killed him. I do think there's something was weird when they then took this kid that died. All right, his 25-year-old. I'm old enough to call 25-year-olds kid, right? So when they take the kid to the coroner after he was shot, 70 to 90 times, for some crazy reason they handcuffed him dead. Why would they do that? I think whoever did that, there should be a special criminal law saying if you handcuff someone who is obviously freaking dead, then you're guilty of this crime. I don't understand why they would do that. I mean, I'm kind of joking. It's not a crime, but that doesn't look good. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of makes them look even worse. It's like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. The guy is filled with at least 60 wounds from gunshots, and he's obviously dead. And then you handcuffed him before you took him in. Like that's ludicrous. Anyway, I do think the police department should fix that. Never ever do that again, right? The next order of business would be, if there is a civil suit. Now, the civil cases are different. In a civil case, you can kind of you could sue the collective police department. And you can kind of you could associate everybody in as co-defendants, and all their actions are kind of like everyone is, it's a whole police department acting together. That is allowed. So if the whole police department collectively was negligent and how many times they shot him and how they shot him and you know, excessive force, that type of thing, you could get them on a civil case, not a criminal case. And I do think, and I think a lot of it too for public relations reasons. And in addition, the fact that I think that the city would definitely be nervous that, you know, a jury would think that this was excessive in terms of a civil case. I think there will be a big civil settlement. You know, again, the civil settlement, not the criminal settlement. All right. Let's get to what happened in Chicago. And by the way, in Chicago last year, in the year 2021, about 800 people died from gunshots in Chicago 2021. And there was something like 30, you know, over 3,000 I think it was like 3,500 gun-related injuries or incidences, and 800 people died, you know, and even so far this year, hundreds of people have died, you know. But of course, the 4th of July one, I mean, it was on the 4th of July, and it was at a parade, and it was, you know, like a beautiful event that then this jerk decides to shoot everybody, right? He was then arrested that same day, this guy. And when he was arrested, it was peaceful. It was a peaceful arrest. It was like, you know, I don't know how to describe it. It was just beautiful. I mean, everything was nice. Everything was cool. Everyone was calm, right? So here's a little bit of the footage of his arrest. And this was on the 4th of July. I don't know. What do you want me to say? He was arrested peacefully. I have a few reasons why. I cannot jump to the conclusion that it was some sort of racial motivation. I don't know, right? But he didn't, okay, unlike Mr. Walker, right? He didn't drive away from the police officers, okay? That's a big deal, because when police officers start a high-speed chase, it's always an adrenaline rush. It's always angry. You know, it's always, you know, it's a different type of circumstance. All right. There should have been, you know, theoretically, he had a gun previously, obviously, right? So why weren't they scared of that when they were around the car? I don't know. They just weren't. I think that, you know, the guy, when he got out, unlike Mr. Walker, you know, they told him to put his hands up. He did. They told him to get on the ground. He did, you know, and he just obeyed every single thing that the police said to him, right? So at that point, when they got to arrest him, around to arresting him, it was peaceful. You know, there was no violence in arresting him. Again, there's been a lot of kind of criticism, like, why are these white shooters, you know, always taken in without incident? I don't know, in the sense that, look, I'm a lawyer, I'm an expert in the law. I cannot say that I'm an expert in police psychology. You know, is there kind of a bias when police see, you know, a black man, you know, that they're about to arrest as opposed to a white man? The evidence, you know, I would take it on a case by case basis. And, you know, it's from the lawyer standpoint, you know, we take these situations case by case type of thing. And then we're supposed to kind of, the reason why we take it case by case is because we have to kind of prove this particular case to the jury. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's how us lawyers kind of like, we think about it. I think like kind of on a bigger basis, right? I think there's a point to be made there and a point to be discussed there. The difficulty in terms of the judicial system is that you can't, so like for example, let's say in this lawsuit with Mr. Walker's family, you can't, there's these rules of evidence, and the law doesn't even allow you to bring into evidence these other arrests in their case. So let's just say the Walker family sues the city of Akron, Ohio, right? Which I anticipate either they will, or there'll be a big settlement, you know, without a lawsuit, you know, pending, right? The law is so clear that in that case, that one particular case, right, Walker family versus Akron, Ohio, they can't even bring evidence of all these other cases. So as a lawyer, that's why I look at it like this. I don't, I'm here to kind of give you the legal eye perspective here. And that legal eye perspective is us lawyers, we don't look at it, in terms of, in Akron, Ohio, be like, well, why was that white guy in Chicago who wasn't being arrested for a traffic violation? He was being arrested for killing 7 people, right? Why was he taken without incident? And here you got this black guy who was, turned left without signaling, and all of a sudden he was killed, right? You can't even make that argument to a jury because it would be inadmissible evidence, all right? Now, let's go to the third case. This case is really difficult for me to talk about, okay? Because this one, we have another black man. He is from the Congo, okay? The country, it's called the Republic Nation of Congo, I think. I might be a little bit wrong, but it's not called Congo. It's called, the Republic Nation of Congo or something like that. Okay, so he's from Congo. He's 26 years old. He had come to America in the year 2014, and I'm talking about Patrick Lyoya. So he came here in the year 2014. His English was really bad. And the reason why I bring that up is because the police officer said that as he was giving this guy instructions, he couldn't tell if the guy was understanding them or not, So that's why I bring up the issue about his English, okay? And also Patrick Lyoya, and I want to be, comprehensive, right, and full. Since he's been here in 2014, and before he was killed a few months ago, he had a few DUIs. He had a lot of substance abuse convictions and substance abuse issues. He had suspended license. He was driving on a suspended license. In fact, the day he was pulled over and then it ultimately led to his death, he was driving on a suspended license, okay? And the car he was driving didn't have like proper tags, the registration plates. And there hasn't been an official report, but a lot of the police cars now, it's not like they have like these automatic scanners of license plates. And so it hasn't been clear if this police officer pulled him over because an automatic thing came up or if he just saw the car and then like ran the plate numbers himself, okay? But the first footage we're gonna watch, this is the body cam footage of the interaction between the police officer and Patrick Lyoya.
Hey, stay in the car! Stay in the car! Stay in the car! Get in the car! Dude, I'm stopping you. Do you have a license? Do you have a license?
For what?
I'm stopping you. Do you have a license?
What that?
Do you have a driver's license? Do you speak English?
Yes.
Can I see your license?
What do you want?
The plate doesn't belong on this car. Do you have a license or no? Do you have a driver's license?
Yes.
Where is it at?
It's in the car.
Get it for me.
What do you want?
The plate does not belong on this car.
Amen. Grab me my lighter right there. Right there.
No, no, no. Stop. Stop. Put your hands right here. Stop. 1915. You got one running. North, bow. Stop.
All right, so as you could see from that body cam footage that this is not going well, right? And I remember I had my senior year in high school in the early 90s. I know I'm old, right? I had a high school teacher that it was the government class, it was called, in my senior year. And he used to always say, when you get pulled over by a police officer, the first test that they administer is the attitude test, all right? And this attitude test is, are you being nice to the police officer? Are you listening to everything he's saying? Or are you giving the police officer attitude? He used to always say that. And, you could see from this, and it's kind of, hey, that's where a lot of the like racial issues come in, like what is perceived as kind of attitude problems from somebody to the police officer and whatnot, and that's obviously a very subjective issue. All right. So anyway, you could see this police officer told Mr. Lyoya, get in the car. He doesn't get in the car. He says, do you have a driver's license? He doesn't have one, or he says it's in the car, blah, 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 and he never got it. He said, what are you doing with this car? Why is the tags not there? This and that, right? Then Mr. Lyoya walks away from the police officer, okay? And one thing police officers don't like is when somebody walks away from them, all right? And that's something that, jurors and whatnot will pick up on, walking away from a police officer, it's a toughie. Okay, so then what happened is Mr. Lyoya walks away, and then the police officer kind of stops him, detains him, and then the scuffle begins, okay? And then the body cam of the police officer shows the scuffle, and what's happening is the police officer has the upper hand. I mean, he gets Mr. Lyoya to the ground, and Mr. Lyoya is on his stomach on the ground. The police officer's on top of him. The police officer's in control of the scuffle, and the police officer's holding him down. And then you're going to hear the police officer's going to say, let go of the taser, let go of the taser. The police officer was trying to tase him, and Mr. Lyoya was trying to stop him from tasing him, and then, that's where the scuffle ends up going. Now, right before the police officer shoots and kills him, the body cam footage disengages. All right. I don't think it was a conspiracy. I don't think the Grand Rapids Police Department intentionally deleted that footage. What they said was that this type of body camera, if it's being compressed for 3 seconds, that's turning it off type of thing. And that, while they're in the scuffle, it was being compressed so that it disengaged. Crazy timing, right? Coincidental timing. And that's what happened. So what we see is the scuffle up until, we see the police officer telling him, stop, trying to get the taser, let go of the taser. And then there's obviously Patrick Lyoya is not abiding, he's fighting back. He's trying to get out of this. He's trying to get out of the hold from the police officer. It seemed like he was trying to get out of the hole and get away, not beat up the police officer. But the body camera disengages. Now, get this. It just so happened Mr. Lyoya has a friend who was with him. The friend was in the passenger seat of the car. And that friend ends up getting out and taking cell phone footage. All right. And that cell phone footage that we're going to shows the scuffle, and then the police officer feeling that he's in control, and then the police officer worrying that he's going to lose control. He takes out the gun and shoots the guy right in the back of the head and kills him instantly. It's going to be really tough footage. It's very disturbing. I want you to see it only if you could stomach it. All right, so here it is.
Let go of the taser!
No, he ain't got no tasers. I see that.
Let go of the taser!
6010, how many cars you got going?
Drop the taser!
Everyone.
All right, so, oh man, that is tough to watch. Okay, what happens here is, like I said, the police officer killed him. He shot him in the back of the head, all right? And what did I say earlier? Anytime there's shots in the back or the back of the head, that's going to be difficult for the police officer to justify, all right? Because for the police officer to justify using deadly force, he has to prove that it was reasonable that he felt his life was in danger or someone else's life is in danger, okay? There wasn't anyone else involved, so he has to prove that his life was in danger. This one is gonna be difficult for the police officer because he shot the guy in the back of the head, right? I mean, but there was a scuffle, It's going to be tough though, because that scuffle didn't seem like the guy was trying to kill the police officer. He just seemed like he was trying to get out of it, you know? And there's a lot of legal scholars, they talk about this de-escalation, being that if the guy wants to get away, you know who he is, you have his car, you know where he lives, or you could find out, there's a lot of scholars that say, well, then just let it de-escalate. Just be like, okay, you know what? We have your name, we have your number. We're going to we're going to catch up to you later. We're going to figure out why the plates aren't there, So a lot of scholars say you don't have to finish him off right then and there. You could, figure it out later, so to speak. But then a lot of police officers say, no, that's not how we do things, right? So unlike the case with Mr. Walker, this case, the prosecutor charged this police officer, Christopher Schurr, with murder, okay? And by the way, it's difficult because look, prosecutors, they rely on the police for their cases, right? They rely on the police. They rely on evidence from the police. They rely on a very good relationship with the police department. All right. So it's sometimes even when the evidence is there, it's hard to get a prosecutor on your side because, they rely on the police department and they're friends, so to speak, right? So to get a prosecutor to charge a police officer, it's not very easy, even when the evidence is there. This case, the prosecutor charges this guy with murder. And unlike the Walker case, right? In the Walker case, we have 90 shots from 8 different police officers. In the Walker case, it's going to be impossible for us to prove who killed Mr. Walker. Here with Mr. Lola in Grand Rapids, we have one police officer, we have one shot, it's in the back of the guy's head. It's obvious, how he died, right? So that one is a much better case for the prosecutor in the sense that it's more provable that who killed him. And then I also think for the prosecutor, that defense of self-defense is going to be tough for the police department in the sense that, shucks, the guy was fighting back, but it wasn't, like he was trying to hurt the police officer. It seemed more like he was trying to get away. But one thing I always say is you can't convict the police officer for murder unless you have 12 jurors that agree. All right. And one thing that I like to say about jurors, who goes on the jury? If they have a criminal history, they can't even be on a jury, right? And the people that get on the jury are people that usually they're good law-abiding citizens, right? And they have respect for the law and the court system. That's why they're on the jury and they didn't weasel out of the jury, right? And a lot of times the criminal defense attorney for the police officer, they can strike jurors, okay? If they think that if they sniff from the juror that he doesn't like or he or she doesn't like police officer, they can kick him out of the jury, right? So ultimately, the prosecutor is going to have to prove to 12 law-abiding citizens who love the police, right, that this police officer committed murder even though there was a scuffle, right? Now, one of the things I always do is I have, as a lawyer and as your lawyer and trying to, educate everyone on these subjects is I go case by case. A lot of people say, well, why are these, when there's these white shooters, they're taken in from the police department without incident. And then there's these black guys who run a red light or turn left without signaling, they get killed. Why is that? And, that they say that there's bias against black people and there's, the system is unfair. As a lawyer, we can't say that in these cases, more or less, because every case, it's the law, it's the judicial system, for better or worse. It's like they look at just this case only. In fact, if for the prosecutor, it's inadmissible evidence, so you can't even bring it in. You can't say to the jury, whether you're the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the prosecutor, cannot say to the jury something like, look, when these police officers in Chicago arrested this white guy after killing 7 people without incident. Everything was cool. This guy, Mr. Lola, didn't even do anything wrong. It was maybe his plates were expired or something. You can't even bring that into evidence. You can't even bring into evidence, what about these other cases? Even in a civil suit, you cannot say, this black guy was killed by the police department, and look how they treated all these white people in other states and in this state. It's what's called inadmissible evidence. And part of the reasoning is because it doesn't relate to this case. It could take the trial, it could go a lot longer. And then what are we going to do? Like debate all those other cases? This is what the legal scholars say. So all of those other cases are not admissible, right? So that's why in these 3 cases, I only go, over the facts of this case, of the 3 cases. I think in Mr. Walker's case, I don't think there's going to be a criminal conviction. All right. Mostly because we can't prove who killed him. Shucks, I don't think there's going to be a criminal conviction. Plus the guy stopped, whatever, he turned around. I don't know. A jury would probably think I would be feared for my life. And I know that the white shooter in Chicago was taken without incident. That is not admissible evidence. So it doesn't even matter for the other cases that happened. And in Mr. Lola's case, I think there's a good chance that the police officer would be found guilty because it was a shot in the back of the head. The police officer had control of the guy. The police officer could have just let him go and tried to de-escalate the situation, So I think in that case, I think that's the only one that I think the prosecutor could, and that's why the prosecutor charged him. And again, 1 bullet, 1 shot in the back of the guy's head. So I think there's something to be said there. And I think I think they could get a criminal conviction. I anticipate that they'll either get a criminal conviction or there'll be some sort of settlement where he'll plead guilty to like a lesser charge, maybe, or I don't know. I mean, I can't predict that, but I do think the prosecutor has a good case in the Michigan case. I think that there will be a big settlement with the family because that police officer, I shot him in the back of the head. There are some scholars like this legal defense fund. It's kind of, like a, pro bono defense fund. They've kind of pushed, and other entities have pushed this kind of de-escalation ideas, especially for traffic stops, right? Because, someone's speeding, someone runs, turns left without signaling and whatnot. Maybe we don't have to kill the person anymore. Maybe we could just not stop them or just take footage of it and send them a ticket for it, or, pull them over. But if the guy runs off, you just de-escalate, you just let them run off and you get their information and, whatever, go to their house at 5 a.m. the next morning or send them a ticket. I don't know. But there's theories out there of thoughts of trying to de-escalate, so that not everything, kind of like ideas of how to de-escalate. I think that is a good topic that police agencies are going to have to discuss, ideas of how to de-escalate. I would love to hear your comments on that. And I would love to hear any comments or any stories you folks have of your incidences in the past with police and how they've gone and what you thought and what happened, or if there was a criminal case or a civil case that was filed. I love hearing from you, and I love the comments, and I love it all. So it was my pleasure to talk to you this week, and I'm excited to see you next week. And as always, any questions you have, feel free to run it by my lawyer. Here's my number, 619-672-1741. Thank you so much, and I'll see you folks next week.